What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about the Fibonacci Retracement tool. And I want to go over kind of a little tip or a little trick for beginners out there, for anybody that's trying to use the tool and you're using it and you're using it properly. You're doing it, you're finding your significant highs, you're finding your discernible lows, and you're measuring from there. And you're doing things right as far as that goes, but you're not foreseeing the chart play out the right way all the time, right? And I don't always, but it is important to be aware of things and not be narrow-minded, not be so narrow-minded that you can't see outside of just one parameter of a thought of what could happen, right? Like you need to have multiple ideas going on. You need multiple fibs drawn if you're just using the fib tool. If you're using other tools, sometimes like one fib is good, but I think it's important to draw different fibs relative to the area that you're at right now. I'm using this as an example because I was just doing analysis on Tron and I was looking at it after I made my video, and I'm predicting that Tron goes lower. I'm predicting Tron goes lower. I didn't look at this fib in my video, but I looked at it afterwards and I was like, huh, if I saw this in the beginning of my video, I might have thought that this was an area that you'd find support and you'd be moving up. So that would have been wrong. It does look right here. This would actually be a nice area based off of this fib. You tore through your 618, went all the way up. You tore through your 1618, went all the way up to your 1886. Generally speaking, whenever you do something like that, where you see a move that goes right up through your 1618 and you see these deeper extensions being hit immediately, the 1886 to the 2272, actually the 2618 even could be thrown in there. When you see those targets being hit, this expected zone as like your up move target, if you break through that, now instead of this being your resistance box, the idea is that it would be your support box and you would go higher. So being that you're at the bottom of that zone at the 1272, this is a kind of classic maneuver that you would see. You would expect to find support here and move up. But if you look at the RSI, you've got bearish divergence, you've got your daily getting below the 50, volume died off here. You just had a nice move up. It would make sense that you see some kind of pullback, and that's why I think it's very important to use multiple fibs. That's probably going to be the title of this video, is like use a bunch of fibs. Don't just draw from one place, which this is discernible, this is significant, it absolutely is. You can see the respect that you're showing on this. It absolutely is a significant fib relative to what we're going over now, but it's not the only one to consider. You should take the low to the high fib and see that you're reaching for your 382, but you're not quite there. Well, if you reach for that 382 at 1474, you're definitely going to be below this 1272. If you break below this 1272, which again, it's not common, but it does happen, that whenever you break above the 1618, right, the common thing would be to find support in this zone, not break through it, but sometimes it happens. And if it happens, the next area to go to would be the 100 to 886, 786 zone. This is normally the zone that you would expect if you found resistance in this zone. Again, being that you broke above it, you would expect to find support in this zone, but you didn't. So now it's back to this lower area. It's kind of the thought if you break the 1272, which we don't know if that's going to happen, but looking at this other fib, looking at this relative fib here, it kind of makes sense that you'd go to your 382 right here. Oftentimes, whenever you go to your 382, you go just below it, okay? So not only are you going to go just below the 1272, but you're probably going to go even lower than that, right? If you go below this 1272, you're probably not going to stop there. It is less common to break above your 1618 and pull all the way back to the 100 to 786 level. It is less common. You probably find support right on that 886. Watch it happen. But it's even less common, in my opinion, to find support somewhere in the middle of nowhere, right here, between the 1272 and the 100 level. That, in this like black zone here, it's not the most kind of common thing to do. That can happen too. Just because it's not common doesn't mean it shouldn't be concerned. After all, you do have a discernible high on a daily close right there, and your discernible high itself, the actual like peak, and that's all kind of near your 100 level. It's close enough where you could find support there. Again, it's not common. It's not what I would expect, but it can happen. It's just something to go over, okay? But if you were just using this, if you're looking at this fib by itself with nothing else, you would probably think, oh, this is a good area to find support. And if you're drawing fibs like this, you drew it in the right area, you've got the right idea, you just didn't do enough. And then whenever you're waiting for this, you're expecting this to happen, and then it drops down, you're going to be like, what the hell? Why isn't it working? C-Zar shows me examples, and it makes sense there, but then whenever I do it, it's not making sense. Think of how you can make sense of it, right? And not always are like I'm using examples, but not always whenever I do TA am I right, obviously, right? I'm sure we've seen plenty of videos where I've been wrong and where I will be wrong. I've been wrong before, I will be wrong again. But not all my videos am I wrong either. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about mitigating risk, but this stuff is to help guide us, right? So if you are finding that you're getting it wrong a bunch of times and you're like confused because you feel like you're doing it right, you might be, but you might not be doing enough. Because if you look at this, you're like, this doesn't look right. This isn't what's supposed to happen. It's not normally, but it can happen. And this is still a normal area to find support. Even then, it's not a bad thing. It's still a higher low. And really, if we look at this kind of all up, like, that's kind of a nice low right in this area, like in comparison to this low here and this low here. Like, it's a nice kind of parabolic structure that you're forming on your daily basis. Like, I don't know, it's a nice, it looks good in my opinion. That's a nice higher low right there. It would have been nice right here too. Would have been definitely a lot stronger, but this from a structural perspective makes more sense, even all the way down to the 618, 786 area. That could happen as well. So start making sense out of it. Like, well, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense from this perspective, but just looking at the price for what it is, looking at the fibs for what they are, from a low to a high, going just below your 382 there, maybe finding support on your 0.5, which you don't normally expect. But again, I said this in my video for TRX, you've got support right here due to previous areas of resistance and even previous areas of resistance here. I really think that 14-cent area is going to come in as support. And the 0.5, you don't often find significance on it, but when you do, you get significant moves. You absolutely can find significance there. To me, the 61869 would make the most sense to go to if you were going this low normally. But when you look at the price action itself, when you take the price action into consideration, which I think you should always be doing, you look at that 618, 619 zone and you're like, or 618, 69 zone, and you're like, there's nothing really going on in the price action. It's not near this significant high. It's not near these significant peaks. I mean, it's kind of near, but it's more at the lows, which is obscure. It's not near this high. The 0.5 is right there, which is also in that zone of that 786 to that 100 level on this fib right here. If you're using the extensions, right, from a high to a low, right, it's right in that area there too. And then I don't know, again, I've taken this fib here from high to low to consider where the price might go. I've taken this here, high to low, to consider where the price might go. I found two things that kind of make sense for that. I've looked at the price action itself. It makes sense from a trending perspective. It makes sense from previous areas of resistance perspective. And then we could take the kind of grander fib, which stands out right this high to this low here of this overall range. I think that's probably a significant one as well. And hey, you went right above your 1414. This cycle, that's been so common, right? Throughout the cycle. It's been less common lately, but still common enough. It happens where things will go right above their 1414. You could call this 1414 resistance, even though it didn't tip right there. Again, going in the black space here is pretty common. Finding support in the black space between your 1272 and the 100, that's not as common. It does happen, but it's not as common. And on this fib, you hit your box of expectations, your 1618 to 1272, right above the 1414. The expectation now would be to pull back to your 100 886 level, more specifically that 886. And where is that 886? It's right here at the previous highs that you just moved up from. Moving up, pulling back to previous points of resistance, finding support. It's an 886 level, coinciding with the 786, 886 level here, coinciding with the 0.5 level here. You look at other fibs to draw a better picture, right? If one of them doesn't make sense for one, it could be wrong, right? But this one makes sense, not just, it's not that it doesn't make sense because it looks bad, right? You drew it from the right high to the right low. This is a discernible range, and it's respecting the fib targets. You can see it closed right at the 1414. You wrestled with the 1618, tipped the 1886, finding support for the last couple days on the 1272. It looks right, but and the right idea would be that you find support in this area. But when you're doing things that are less common, that don't make sense, it might make more sense if you're broadening your horizons and you're using other fibs, right? And you don't have to stop there. You can be happy with your analysis. You can be like, okay, I've seen enough to think that that's good, but there's nothing wrong with taking a wider scope and looking at things, right, and kind of seeing where you are on a more grand scale, right? And if we were to do that, we could take last cycle's high to the low of the cycle, which is right there, right, and just measure that fib as well, just to kind of get a general idea of where we are. We broke above the 886, moving back down to around the 786 is a pretty common thing to do if you don't follow through with that breakout. Now, generally, I would expect that you go to the 786 based off of this, but again, generally is just a thing. It doesn't mean that it has to happen. We could find support right here because we have previous areas of resistance and we have all those other significant levels of support on other fibs. We could go down just a little bit lower, and we know that that's okay because this is a pretty key area. This is a pretty common thing to do. Break above your 886 like this, pull back to your 786, and then you rip. All in all, though, you look at this too, you can see that once this moved down, this little correction, whatever it is that's done, around 14 cents, maybe go to 13 cents, whatever. you've got higher prices to look forward to, 26 cents, 41 cents, stuff like that. So that gets you in the right mindset that even though you're doing things that are out of the norm based on a couple fibs that it wouldn't make sense for you to go lower, but you go lower, that doesn't scare you. You're not making the wrong decisions, and you can see, you have the foresight to look forward and see where this move is actually taking you and where you're going. And using the same tool overall, but through different perspectives. So you can use it across several time frames, different locations. I very much don't believe, and I don't think you'll ever find me doing analysis on anything where I just take one fib. I like to see extensions, I like to see retracements, and there's a difference. And when you start to really assess that, whenever you start to go in your head, you're like, okay, I can see right now, this is my retracement range, right? And then you're like, this is actually kind of a fake out high. Maybe I'll take it here. This kind of makes more sense to me. You look, you don't really see respect. Maybe you try the actual high. There's kind of some respect here, but not really. I don't know, tomato. You're not going to find respect on all of them. But, man, I'm losing my train of thought because this is not a good example here. But you look, this is your retracement. And then if you're like, okay, I'm not finding anything on the retracement, you can go back and try to find something on the extension, which would then be off of this high to this low here, which there you go, something like that. So I don't know. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. If you like the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more. I hope this educates people a little bit more on just my thought process and maybe how you can go about using fibs. If you want a more introductory course into fibs, I probably should have said this in the beginning. I definitely would recommend checking out the Fibonacci, I don't know why this is here, Fibonacci Retracement Tool education that I'm going to have. I'm going to put this video in there. And it's not that I'm going to have it. It's there. It's a playlist on my channel. Just go to playlist and you'll see it there. It's the only playlist I have. It's not the most professional videos ever. I try to explain it well, but why is it only showing one? That's not what I meant to do. Come on now. It's only showing one videos. There we go. Fibonacci Retrace Tool, pro tips for beginners. Fibonacci Retrace Tool, understanding the fib. I think this one was my first one, and that's the second one. So if you want to watch this, how it's meant to be watched. Oh no, I have it wrong. This is my first one. So it is in list from first one to second one. Okay, cool. April 5th to April 10th, first one, second one. So watch that one first, then watch that one. And then if you have watched those already, this one might be relevant, or I don't know. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end it here. The reason I used TRX is just because it was the last coin that I talked about, right? And I thought that it was a good little template to describe what I was going over. So with that, I'm going to end the video. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you all for being here. I hope everybody learned a little bit and hopefully better understands how to use the fib. And if you're getting it wrong, maybe this helps shine a light onto that, right? Maybe you just need to do a little bit more. It's not that you're doing things wrong, you just might not be doing enough. And in a position where we're just sitting in a chair on our computer and all you have to do is a couple clicks, not doing enough is not a big deal. I'm not like, you didn't do enough, you didn't dig a big enough ditch, you didn't lay enough concrete, right? It's not like hard work to do. It's just it requires a little bit more thinking. That's it. And in a couple flicks of the finger. But anyways, I'm going to stop talking. Bye-bye.